recovery will be at the forefront of our education agenda. Learners will be made more resilient. Our public schools and facilities are being increased and fortified. Taking to heart the lessons of the pandemic, alternative delivery modes and blended learning methodologies have been adopted to ensure unhampered learning. We are recalibrating the K-10 curriculum to ensure that it is always relevant, responsive, and at par with international standards. Literacy and numeracy skills need to be strengthened. The virtue of good citizenship and sense of community are also now integrated into our curriculum.
As President Bongbong Marcos said, his State of the Nation address this year was a progress report more than anything. On the education front, Marcos Jr. talked about, among others, learning recovery after the pandemic, augmenting the workforce in public schools, and alternative learning. We zoom in on these issues with Senate Committee on Basic Education Chairman Win GATCHALIAN tonight on the Chiefs. Welcome to the midweek edition of the Chiefs. I'm Ed Lingao. With me tonight, Ana Marie Pamintuan, Editor-in-Chief of the Philippine Star. Ami, magandang hapon, no? Magandang gabi.
Good evening.
And good to see you this midweek, this stormy midweek.
Happy midweek kasi paalis na nga si Ega yan.
Yeah, and thankfully, although nag-signal number 5 tayo
Sa north,
sa north.
Luzon,
Although may casualties pero it's not as bad as we would have feared.
For a super typhoon.
For a super typhoon.
Diba?
And we don't always get signal number 5.
Yes, palakas ng palakas sa mga bagyo dito.
Kasi nung panahon natin, parang hanggang number 3 lang.
Hanggang number 3 lang. Hindi talaga.
Hanggang doon ang bilang natin eh.
Tapos nagkaroon na tayo ng storm surge. Ngayon meron na tayo signal number 5. No?
Yeah. So some significant developments on the weather front, but as well, we've been seeing some rains. Hopefully, they're falling in the right place.
Oo nga, yan na nga. Kasi bumababa pa rin daw sa Angat Yan ang problema. Yan ang problema sa mga dams. Although yung iba, nakakapag-release yung iba.
Yeah. Although it also makes you wonder if we should or could expect storms just as strong in the coming months.
Pero
signal number 5.
Ngayon nakaalis na yung storm. Isa pang magandang balita, midweek.
Ibang bagyo yan.
Love the Filipinas.
Yeah.
No?
We do.
Yes.
we do love the Filipinas.
Hindi, pero ngayon mukhang magkaka-interest or tataas ang interest ng mga Pilipino sa football.
In soccer or football.
Soccer.
Yeah.
Yes, hindi ba?
That for some reason has not taken off in the Philippines. Not like basketball. Mga Pinoy may basketball kahit nahihirapan mag-shoot sa taas sa ring.
Pero ngayon, remember nung nanalo si Heidelin lahat ng mga bata gusto na rin mag-weightlifting, di ba? Yung si Manny Pacquiao, of course, ang daming gusto mag-boxing. Ngayon, sa mga schools, di ba?
Yeah.
Mukhang tataas yung interest sa soccer.
Of course, we're talking about yung our first goal sa FIFA World Cup.
And our first entry.
First entry.
Yan. And,
that's what we're talking about.
At natalo pa si New Zealand na napakalakas sa napakalakas sa soccer. Oo nga, in their home court. Kaya malaking bagay.
So yun. A lot of good news and not so good news. But then again, we will be going to a topic that also has some good news and some not so good news.
At kasamang sports development. Dati. Although
everything from sports to energy to education and so on down the line. So we will be speaking to Senator Sherwin GATCHALIAN right after this break. The Chiefs will be right back. Welcome back to the Chiefs. Before we proceed with our discussion with Senator Win GATCHALIAN, we will first be joined by BENJO BASAS, the National Chairman of the Teachers Dignity Coalition. Sir, magandang gabi and thank you for joining us tonight.
Good evening.
Yes, Mami, Sir Ed. Good evening po. Good evening sa lahat po ng nanonood. Thank you.
Sir BENJO, let me start off with something very, very basic. Yung feedback po niyo dun sa zona ng Pangulo as far as education.
Well, actually, Sir Ed, of course, hindi naman masama mag-expect, and we expected, na at least meron po sanang banggit, na specific, specific on teachers' welfare, But ito yung aming pangkalahatan ngayon, na assessment. Medyo nabigo po kami. no, dahil wala pong binanggit, no, tungkol sa welfare ng ating mga guro. At yung mga alam niyo yung mga kagyat, no, ng mga bagay, ng mga kayang bigyan, ano, ng immediate action, ano, ng executive ay hindi rin po nabanggit, no, dito sa zona ng Pulo. Gaya nung isa namin hinihingi, no, na at least yung Philippine history ibalik, no, dun sa curriculum. Kasi of course, no, the DepEd can do it, no, pero syempre iba pa rin kapag may marching order yung presidente.
Sir, may sinasabi ang Pangulo nung Lunes na we are augmenting our school workforce. 90% daw of the newly created teaching positions have already been filled with additional admin personnel hired to unburden the teachers. I'm not sure exactly what he meant by that. 90% of the newly created teaching positions have been filled.
Well, we have to recognize naman that po, no, kasi if I'm not mistaken, parang around again, I'm not sure of the data, no, pero around 20,000 yung ating mga o 30,000 yung ating mga personnel po, no, na na-hire for this fiscal year, no, and syempre marami diyan naman talaga ay mga teacher, no, and considering po, no, na itong fiscal year natin ay nagsimula naman, ano, nung January pa, no, so pwede nating i-expect, no, na talagang naka-deploy na po ito, no, at yes, ano din natin, ano, i-recognize din natin, ano, na meron naman pong mga bago, no, na mga personnel, no, na mga non-teaching personnel na deployed sa ating mga eskwelahan. Ito bilang sagot din naman ano, ng ating Department of Education at ng ating Pangulo, no, doon sa usapin, ano, ng panahon ng kampanya, no, nabawasan yung clerical task ng mga guro, no, at magagawa ito partly sa pamamagitan ng pag-hire ng mga non-teaching personnel.
Mr. Basas, nabanggit din ni President Marcos yung recovery from the pandemic, na lift na yung ating yung state of COVID emergency, pati yung mga calamity. Kumusta naman yung actual recovery ng ating education system from the pandemic? Ano pang mga problema ngayon, saka talaga ba daw malaki na ang pagbabago?
Well, compared, madam, no, doon sa almost 3 years na wala tayo talagang face-to-face, no, siguro isa ito sa pinakamalaki, no, pwede nating sabihin na tangible, no, na accomplishment ng Marcos administration based doon sa 2022 SONA. Kasi binanggit niya ito, no, na yung school year, well, nung SONA nung 2022, no, a few weeks, no, prior to opening of classes, binanggit niya ito. Of course, that's that's expected naman po, no, na magbubukas talaga yung klase natin dahil tayo na lamang naman ang wala, no. So sa tanong po, no, kumpara doon sa nakalipas, syempre, no, umabante po tayo ngayon dahil tayo ay nasa face-to-face classes na, but still, no, and even the Department of Education po, no, ay admitted, no, na marami pa tayong kulang in terms of resources, no, especially syempre dito sa ating class size, no, sa ating mga school buildings, no, ay marami pa rin po tayong kulang.
Nabanggit din niya po yung continuing upskilling, reskilling. Ano naman yung gusto niyong makita by way of improving the capacity ng mga teaching staff natin?
Yan po yung sinasabi niya din, ano, last year, no. Well, sabi nga po namin, gusto naming maramdaman ito sa grassroots, no, kasi kung kabilang sa tinutukoy po dito yung in-service trainings po, no, ng ating mga teachers, no. Ito'y ginagawa na, no, traditionally, ever since ginagawa po ito, no, at lalabas nga 100% ng mga guro sa buong bansa ay uma-attend po dito, no. But these are initiatives po, no, sa aming mga eskwelahan, sa ating mga eskwelahan, ano, at kumbaga nothing new, no. So ang gusto lang po sana namin na makita, no, pagdating sa upscaling po, no, na sinasabi po, no, at retraining ng mga teachers, no, isama dito, no, yung pag-aayos, no, pagpapaunlad ng capacity ng ating mga guro, no, in terms of, at makikita ito sana, no, in terms of postgraduate education po, no, or trainings, no, na pwedeng i-accredit ng Department of Education at magamit ng ating mga guro, no, doon po sa merit and promotion system po na dapat naman ay fair, no, para sa ating lahat ng mga teachers.
Sir, ito po isa binabanggit ng Pangulo noong Lunes, talking about the classrooms shortage. The shortage of classrooms and facilities is being addressed. Aside from new constructions, excuse me, schools and facilities are being retrofitted to become ready for the future, ready for hybrid and high-tech learning, and also climate ready and disaster-proof. Unfortunately, parang wala siyang binigay ng numbers doon sa excuse me, dun sa classroom shortage and how that is being addressed. Pero as far as he's concerned, it's already being addressed.
Of course, no, taon-taon po naman, no, meron tayong construction ng mga classrooms po, no, pero kukulangin pa rin yan. And especially, Sir Ed, no, kapag pinag-usapan natin yung classrooms natin, ano, na dapat ay climate proof, no, na pwede nating sabihin gano'n, ano. Yan yung sinasabi namin dati, no, na kahit nga natin hindi ibalik, no, sa April at May yung ating bakasyon, ano, basta maayos yung ating mga classroom, no, basta maayos yung ventilation, ano po, no, at yun yung sinasabi po namin, ano, na strategic na approach, no, at meron itong kumbaga talagang yung iba-iba, no, na mga dinaranas po natin ng mga calamities, no, sa ating bansa ay kaya mag-withstand itong ating mga school buildings, no. Hindi gaya nung, well, nakita naman po natin yan during the time of Yolanda, no, at yung mga baha po na nangyari, mga bagyo na nangyari po, no, sa Mindanao, sa Visayas, sa North Luzon, nakita naman po natin, ano, na hindi po kinaya ng ating mga facilities at infrastructure.
Doon pa rin po sa pandemic recovery, I understand na itutuloy-tuloy na yung may institutionalize na yung blended learning modes. Kumusta yung progress dito? Kasi we understand kapag may mga bagyo halos automatic na, di ba? Nakakapag-shift na yung ibang mga school sa ganyan. Kumusta yung trend shifting to blended learning?
Yes, ma'am, no. Actually, yung blended learning naman, pwede naman po kasi talaga, no, na meron tayong gamit na technology, no, online, at din naman ito na modular, no. So most likely, madam, no, if ever na nag-automatic shift tayo, no, on a daily basis kasi ito, no, hindi lang po sa mga bagyo, kundi pati yung heat index natin noong nakaraan, noong April at May, nakita po natin, no, na most of our schools po and of course learners po ay mas preferred. O hindi lang mas preferred, no, kundi mas ang kaya lang, no, ay yung modular po, no. Kaya medyo affect talaga, no, pati yung number of school days natin po, no, kapag magkakaroon po tayo ng mga ganito, no. Kaugnay niyan, Ma'am Ami, no, kasi may binabanggit din yung Pangulo nung nakaraan, no, na dapat daw magkaroon ng internet connectivity yung mga eskwelahan, no, at saka gadget, no, na ibibigay doon sa mga bata. But so far, yun ng mga teacher natin, wala pa pong gadget, no, at wala pa rin po tayong internet connectivity, no, 100% sa mga school, no. Admittedly, sinabi din naman ng Pangulo yan, no, na pag tapos ng kanyang term ay dapat lahat ng barangay o buong Pilipinas ay meron ng kuryente, no. So that is an admission na hindi po lahat, no, ng lugar sa ating bansa ay may kuryente, no. Paano pa kaya yung internet, lalong-lalo na dun sa mga last mile schools po, no, na tinatawag po natin.
Well, still on COVID recovery, si Senator Win GATCHALIAN magiging guest namin maya-maya. And he expressed concern, or hindi naman concern, kundi he's interested kung paano yung implementation ng National Mental Health Law. Sabi niya, nagkakaproblema yung mga learners especially, lalo na nung after the lockdowns. Tama ba yun? Is there reason for his concern? Tama ba yun na ano?
Yes, ma'am, no. Actually, kaya nga po kabilang din naman po yan doon sa aming mga agenda, no, doon sa ating gobyerno. At dapat po ito tignan, hindi lamang sa education lens, no, hindi lamang sa punto de vista ng pagpapatupad o implementation ng education recovery, no, kasi hindi po ito biro, no. Kaya nga dapat yung mga policies po ng ating Department of Education dapat consulted po diyan, no, yung ating mga health experts, no, lalo na sa mental health, no. Kasi ang dami po talaga, no, at well, alam ni Senator GATCHALIAN dahil siya ang chair ng Education Committee ng Senate, no, at nai-report po sa kanya ito, no. Kaya nga po, no, yung ating mga schools natin ay naging napaka-flexible, no, napaka-flexible po natin dun sa mga bata, no. Well, hangga't maaari nga hindi namin binabagsak, hindi pinagagalitan yung mga bata dahil napaka-sensitive, no? Ngayon, may generational issue rin dito, pero we couldn't perhaps touch on that, no? Pero perhaps ito nga po, no, yung epekto po nung pandemic. Kaya nga po, no, pati itong National Learning Camp, no, na isinusulong ng DepEd, no, while we naman po, no, we acknowledge, no, na ito yung makakatulong sa learning recovery, no, ay baka hindi po nakita dito, no, yung isang usapin, yung usapin na dapat bigyan po ng pahinga, no, o mas dapat bigyan ng pahinga yung ating mga mag-aaral at yung mga guro na rin mismo.
Well, sir, let me go back to something you mentioned, although very briefly a while ago at the start. As we were talking a little bit about yung mga benepisyo para sa mga guro at well, everything from salaries to allowances to just about everything else. Take it from the name of your organization, Teachers Dignity Coalition. Where are we right now as far as that is concerned? Yung kalagayan ng mga guro natin.
Well, medyo po, no, in fact, ngayon po, no, nakikita ko sa mga social media po, no, na mga notification, ang dami po nating mga teacher, no, na nag-abroad. Araw-araw po nakita ko ng bago, no, na nagbibigay po ng kanilang experience, no, sa pag-apply sa Japan, sa US, sa Thailand, no, sa Malaysia or wherever. No, ibig sabihin po doon talaga kumukuha, mahanap ng greener pasture yung ating mga guro, no. So ito yung hinihingi po namin na aumento sa sweldo, no, yung mga maayos na mga benepisyo gaya ng tatlong bagay, no, Sir Ed, no, yung mga benepisyo na non-monetary, no, yung pabahay, no, yung health at yung education po ng ating mga guro ay sa tingin namin ito ay ito ay obligasyon ng ating gobyerno sa kanyang mga empleyado, sa kanyang mga manggagawa, no, na at of course, no, especially, no, dahil teachers, no, at kailangan talaga na magkakaroon ng training at paunlarin, no, yung aming kapasidad, yung aming kakayahan. Ito'y hindi na bibigay, no, na ibibigay ng gobyerno. In fact, kahit yung almost 6 decades na, no, na Magna Carta for Public School Teachers, no, ay hindi ito na ipatutupad, no. May isang provision ito, no, na dapat sasagutin ng gobyerno yung kalusugan, ano, ng mga guro, yung hospitalization, yung annual na check-up, hindi po yan na ipatutupad, no. Kaya ang layo pa po, no, nung hahabulin. And this is the reason din naman, no, kung bakit naman po kami ay willing, no, to engage, no, the policy makers, no, and even the president, no, the Department of Education, no, the Congress, and even the president. Medyo masakit po, no, at ang kalagayan po ng ating mga guro ay hindi po talaga mabuti, no, sa kasalukuyan, no. Socio-economically, no, yun po yung pinakamalaki nating problema. And this is a violation of the principle of our Constitution na sinasabi po, no, na dapat ay bigyan ng pinakamataas na budget ang edukasyon at yung mga guro ay panatiliin po natin, ano, na mahuhusay na guro at dapat ay fulfilled, no, yung ating mga teachers po.
But anyway, Mr. Basas, of course, ang point person ni President Marcos sa education is his education secretary. Kumustahin naman namin, naka 1 year na rin si Vice President Sara Duterte as Secretary of Education. Ano po yung tingin ng mga teachers sa performance ng Secretary of Education?
So far naman po, no, yung ating Vice President at least yung kanyang team, no, ay responsive naman po, no, at nagkakaroon naman po kami ng mga consistent, no, na pag-uusap with some undersecretaries, no, and some bureau chiefs, no, at nakasabi naman namin yung mga gusto naming sabihin, no, at naisasama naman minsan yung aming agenda sa kanilang tinatalakay, no. Siguro na lang po, no, hindi naman po kami ay siloso, no, at itong Department of Education at ating mga guro, no. Siguro mas kailangan pong mas maramdaman, no, ng ating mga teacher, no, yung ating Vice President, no, especially that she's the Vice President, no, mas maramdaman po, no, dito sa ating Department of Education.
By way of improving the quality of education, ano pa kaya ang gusto nyong makita? Kasi even before the pandemic, of course, we all know, meron na nga yung assessment, no, na mga 10-year-old students natin, mababa yung ranking sa reading comprehension and sa science and math. Ano po ang gusto nyong makita to improve the situation?
Well, siguro po pangunahin, kailangan talaga nating iba pa yung class size natin po, no, lalong-lalo na dito sa basic, sa primary, no, sa kinder to grade 3, no? Yan yung foundation po, no? Kapag ka hindi po natin naisayos, no? At nagtuloy-tuloy, kaya po dumadami yung non-readers natin hanggang sa high school, no? Dahil po sa hindi po natin natututukan talaga, no? Yung kalidad ng edukasyon, ano, mula kinder hanggang grade 3. No, yun po yung una. Pangalawa ay malaking bagay po talaga, no, yung budget, no, yung kaukulang budget po sa lahat ng items, no, na importante, no, para sa pagkatuto ng ating mga bata, no. And lastly, which is subsidy the number 1, yung atin pong yung kalagayan po ng ating mga guro. Kasi wala po, kahit anong gawin po natin, no, Mami, Sir Ed, kahit po anong gawin nating program, kahit anong curriculum, kahit gaano nating pagandahin ng curriculum and facilities po, no, kung yung mga teacher po natin ay demoralized, no, yung mga teacher po natin ay hindi masaya, mga teacher po natin ay underpaid, no, ay wag po tayong umasa, no, na magiging maunlad, magiging mahusay yung ating edukasyon.
Okay. Well, sir, maraming salamat po for joining us tonight, Mr. Benjo Basas ng Teachers Dignity Coalition. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes po. Opo. Magandang gabi po.
Thank you.
We will continue the discussion about the state of basic education in the Philippines right after this breather. The Chiefs will be right back.
Welcome back to the Chiefs. As promised, we have Senator GATCHALIAN. Thanks for talking to us again, Senator.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Ed.
Senator, yung State of the Nation address ni President Marcos, he mentioned the learning poverty, the learning gap during the pandemic, at saka yung mga long-running problems in the education sector. But before we go to your reaction to the SONA, tanungin muna namin, we understand your Committee on Education had a meeting katatapos lang. Can you tell us what happened?
Yes. This morning we talked about early childhood care and development. And we are trying to plug the gaps and the issues that are prevailing in the delivery of early childhood care and development. Just to give our viewers an idea, we have daycare centers and child development centers all over the country. However, the participation rate is only 9% of the total population of that age cohort. So meaning out of the 6 million age 3 to 4 years old, only 600,000 are going to schools. So maliit lang yung pumapasok sa mga schools natin, and the direction is to achieve as much as possible universal access and universal enrollment.
Senator, ano kaya ang dahilan kung bakit low participation? Kulang ba sa budget yung parents o ayaw lang talaga nilang ipadala mga bata kapag sobrang bata pa?
That's a very good question. I mean, in the demand side, a lot of our parents don't see the value of sending their kids at that age to school. First, it's expensive for them, no? Because they have to buy books, buy bags, they have to bring their kids to school, so it takes up time, and it takes away time from doing other livelihood activities. On the supply side, man, we don't have enough daycare centers and child development centers across the country. We will need approximately 500,000, 50,000 child development centers in the country, but to date we only have 4,000 of them across the country.
Pero sir, how do we address that issue of the demand issue na they do not see the value in sending their kids to these centers? I mean, kung doon pa lang problemado na, talagang hindi talaga siya uusad. How do we address that I don't know, that apparently wrong assessment of the value of these centers?
Yeah, preschool is not compulsory in our country, meaning children aged 3 to 4 years old are not mandated, or they're not mandated to go to school. It's optional on the part of the parents. But there are so many studies that show that the earlier a child can go to school and the earlier a child can go to preschool centers, they tend to perform better in math, science, reading, and other foundational skills. And we demonstrated earlier in our hearing analysis from CPLM, which is a big international large-scale assessment program. Also, UNICEF presented studies, and in both studies, it demonstrated that children perform better if they go to school earlier. So that should be the selling point to our parents, that their children will become intelligent, their children will stay in school longer, their children will be prepared for kindergarten, grade 1, and so on. That should be the selling point. Right now, we don't see that positive side. For them, it's a cost burden. So we need to change the mentality of our parents so that they see the value of sending their kids to our daycare and child development centers.
Yes, sir. Yun nga sir we've had so many disappointing results yung for example yung PISA among other things down the road, 'di ba? Apparently hindi maganda yung foundations yung learning foundations much earlier than before they take tests like PISA. Pero nga sir, how exactly do you do that? You're talking about the importance, pero I suppose hindi na-recognize masyado ng parents yung importance na yan eh. How do you change something like that?
Yeah. So in our proposal, in the bill that we are proposing earlier, is we will give a lot of responsibility to our local government units. Early childhood care and development is one aspect of education that is completely devolved to our local government units. So meaning they run the schools, they pay the teachers, they fund the centers. And because we lack centers, accessibility is a big issue in terms of early childhood care and development. The local government units will now be mandated to expand the access to our ECCD to improve quality in our ECCD with the guidance, of course, of national government. So meaning national government will come up with the policy, will come up with standards, and it will be the local governments on the ground that will be implementing those policies and standards.
Senator, yesterday we were talking to Interior and Local Government Secretary Benhur Abalos, and sabi niya, nagkakaproblema na actually yung local governments dahil tinurn over sa kanila, dinevolve sa kanila yung construction of schools, and they don't have enough money and capacity, marami sa kanila, for this function. So idadagdag pa ngayon yung mga basic education. Ano kaya ang pwedeng remedyo dyan? Magkakaproblema yata tayo dyan.
Can you repeat the question, Ami? Medyo, I think I lost you earlier.
Yes, Senator, we were talking last night with Interior and Local Government Secretary Benhur Abalos, at sabi niya, dahil na-devolve daw sa local government units yung construction ng schools, marami daw ngayon na nahihirapan actually to carry out this function dahil una, kulang sa pondo, at pangalawa, kulang sa capacity mismo. So baka magka-problema in implementing kung sakasakaling matuloy ang balak nyo na sila pa rin yung magiging madadagdag sa kanila yung early childhood education. Ano kaya ang pwedeng remedyo dyan?
Tama si Secretary Benner, being a former mayor. He knows very well the capacity of the local government units. Definitely, it cannot be solely the responsibility of the local government unit. It will be a partnership. But the management, administration of our daycare centers and child development centers will be the LGUs. Now, on the investment, building centers, expanding the centers, it will be jointly undertaken by national and local, but primarily led by the local. So, to yung mga mayayaman na cities, no? City here, NCR, they don't have problems in expanding. But yung mga 5th class, 6th class, 3rd class municipalities, those are the LGUs that national government needs to support.
Senator, down the line, do you see this becoming mandatory to early education? Kasi sinabi na nga, well, napansin na nga rin natin na yung parents mismo, they are hesitant to send their very young children to school.
Based on yeah, that's a very good question. In fact, I asked that exact question to DepEd earlier. And based on our research, not all countries made early childhood compulsory. Some of them made it compulsory to go to school as early as 4 years old, but not as early as 2 or early as 3. So very few countries actually made it compulsory at the age of 4 years old. So, but we also saw some best practices. For example, New Zealand, even though it's not compulsory, but their participation rate for 3 years old and 4 years old is as high as 90%. So it goes to show that if you can demonstrate to our constituents that the education is of quality, accessibility is not a problem, support is not a problem. For example, books, materials, then parents will be encouraged to enroll their kids to early childhood education. So it's really a function of quality and demonstrating to our parents that the support is there, and the support will lead to better learning outcomes for their children. But in terms of making it compulsory, based on our studies, it's not a best practice across the world.
Sir, can I move on to another topic? Sir, dun naman sa energy issues, during the SONA, the President made special mention of the NGCP and the need to review, I suppose, its performance in the last few years. Your thoughts on this, sir?
Well, the President criticized a few personalities in his SONA. Orders, smugglers, dirty cops, and there's NGCP. So my initial reaction is NGCP is put in the same category of being a criminal. And the crime is not expanding and finishing all the transmission lines that they committed to government. Without a transmission line, no matter how fast we build power plants, it's useless because you cannot transmit electricity to the homes of our constituents. So that's a signal that NGCP is not performing up to par. And the franchise of NGCP is given as a privilege, not as a right. Privilege from all of us, consumers, that we trust them, that they can deliver the projects on time, and we will be assured of electricity 24/7. So NGCP needs to shape up, and this is not the first time that Congress and the Senate have mentioned this, but this is the first time that a sitting president have mentioned the shortcomings and inefficiencies of the transmission operator.
Pero sir, do you see any need to I don't know, to set deadlines or benchmarks or any sort of standards by which to judge when the franchise needs to be I don't know reviewed?
Well, Ed, this is going to be the first time that ERC have sent a show cause order to NGCP, and if the reasons will not be valid, they will be penalized, and that will be the first time. In the past, ever since NGCP was created, it was never been penalized. There was no show cause order, so they were doing projects freely at their will, and that's not should be, because you have to remember that all of these projects are being collected from us consumers. So meaning, when the projects gets approved, they start collecting from us, and they dictate on when the projects will be completed and turned over for operations. So in other words, they are collecting from us, but we're not seeing the end goal of operating those transmission assets. So yes, definitely they should be penalized for the delay. And then number two, government should be very strict in enforcing the deadlines that NGCP themselves committed to finish. You know? So government should be very strict with deadlines. And if NGCP cannot perform, then we should be open in giving the system operation and the transmission operations to other entities who can perform better.
Senator, nabanggit yung energy security in line with the efforts to improve the economy, and you are the vice chair of the Committee on Economic Affairs. And the President also mentioned that he wants Congress to pass amendments or new laws on ease of doing business, on the procurement law. Can you tell us ano pa ang pwedeng gawin? Because we've had 2 laws already on ease of doing business and cutting red tape. Saka itong Procurement Act, ano kaya ang pwedeng gawin just to make the country more investment friendly?
And auditing, there's also the
Yung pa, yun. To amend the Government Auditing Act.
You're right, Ami, that we just recently passed the Ease of Doing Business law. In fact, in that Ease of Doing Business law, we created a special body, the Anti-Red Tape Commission, solely to eliminate red tape and solely to punish government employees who deliberately delay projects and not improve systems and processes. So that law should be strictly implemented, and the president should use that law to its full extent. I mean, in some good news that are coming out is we are seeing a lot of improvements in terms of fighting red tape. Like for example, building cell towers now. If my memory serves me right, they've managed to reduce the time of building cell towers by 80%. Before, it had to go through the local government units, the national government agencies, has to pass through many signatures, but they've managed to reduce the time frame by 80%. ERC is also Energy Regulatory Commission has implemented their digitalization efforts as well. So before everything, you have to go to ERC physically to file all your documents. Now you can file it online. So there are shining examples from government agencies that are reducing red tape and improving processes. But definitely, there's a lot of things that we should do to further eliminate red tape and making it easier for our constituents to set up businesses. In the Senate, we will pass the Ease of Paying Taxes law. And the Ease of Paying Taxes law, in effect, will make it easier for a taxpayer to pay their taxes by fully digitalizing the experience of paying taxes. And they can now go to any bank if they wish to pay their taxes. Before, you have to go to a specific bank just to pay your taxes. Now you can file anywhere, you can pay anywhere, you can pay online. So it will make paying taxes very easy for a taxpayer. That's also in line with the ease of doing business principle.
What about improvements in the Procurement Act? Kasi again, going back to our talk with Interior Secretary Abalo, sabi niya, actually, yung marami pa daw tayong local government units that lack the capability. They don't even have legal officers who understand the Procurement Act. Kaya hindi nga daw nasusunod dyan eh. Lalo na from barangays, even to the mayors. Ano kaya ang pwedeng remedyo doon?
One of the, if you look at the Procurement Act, I mean, it's a well-designed law that will safeguard the money of government by specifying processes when government buys items or engage services. So there are processes there and there are safeguards there in order for government to make sure that the taxpayers' money will not be put to waste. However, those processes also led to an unintended consequence, one of which is race to the bottom. meaning pababaan sila ng presyo regardless of the quality. And we all know if you lower down prices, it doesn't necessarily bring good quality. So more often than not, we are seeing low prices in terms of government purchases, but the quality is not so good or the services are not so up to par. So that is one of the concepts that the amendment of the procurement law wants to correct. That not because you're cheap, you're the best quality, or not because you're cheap, you're the best service. We will improve the procurement law in such a way that government gets the best quality, but still enforces the safeguards that will protect government coffers.
Pero sir, hindi ba dun yun sa terms of reference dun sa bidding? Kasi I mean even in other countries, they go for the lowest bidder so long as they meet the standards set in the terms of reference. Which is why even though they give it off to the lowest bidder, you still have $100 hammers in the US military because it has to meet certain standards. Yung mga tornilyo, kahit tornilyo lang yan, it has to go through several cycles before it's acceptable. So yes, it could be the lowest bidder pa rin, so long as the lowest bidder would meet the standards set by the Bids and Awards Committee. I thought that was the principle behind the public bidding system.
Correct. You're absolutely correct, Ed. No, the terms of reference will dictate the standards of quality and the standards of service. But in some cases, there are very specific products that have specific brands. And because the law does not specify brands, the government is barred from choosing a good brand or choosing a good quality product. So you're correct that one of the safeguards there is to come up with a comprehensive terms of reference, but that also has unintended consequences in a sense that government is barred from getting well-known, branded, and well-known good quality products because we have to rely on the general terms of reference in order to procure. So there are some technicalities that we want to look at, but the bottom line here is to enable government to get the best quality, but still maintain the safeguards that will protect government funds.
Yes, sir. Sir, let me reframe na lang the question. I suppose the concern of some people is that we've always had problems with corruption. I mean, it's never gone away. So I understand your point, po, that there also needs to be some flexibility as far as the rules are concerned in terms of auditing and procurement. But how do we also make sure that we are not loosening up the rules too much? And make it even all the more easier for people who are into corruption to dig in and and feed themselves.
Tama ka dyan, Ed. You're absolutely correct. In fact, procurement is one of the most, or procurement can be one of the most corrupted activities of government because procurement is buying. So government coffers go up and you buy items for government. So it's one of those can be easily corrupted if you don't put the safeguards, and it's actually the most tempting activity of government because you buy items. So I will personally look at the safeguards and make sure that government coffers is protected and maintained, while giving flexibility and while giving some flexibility to government to procure high quality items, because we have also noticed, and personally I've also noticed that because suppliers are racing to the bottom, that the cheapest wins, but we don't necessarily get the best product for government, and we end up buying more. Actually, what happens, because if the quality is not so good, instead of that product lasting for a long time, you have to buy up again after a certain point because the quality of that product is not so good. So in the long run, government ends up paying more for that product. So, but I totally agree with you. That's why personally I'm going to scrutinize the proposals to amend the procurement law because we don't want it to be a source of abuse for unscrupulous government officials.
Sir, sorry, pahabol na lang, sir. Total, ano lang kayo. Yung MUP, sir, the pitch to finally pass an MUP reform law. We've talked to the ILG, PNP, and Defense Department. They're coming up with all sorts of numbers and all sorts of proposals para middle ground of sorts na acceptable sa taxpayer at acceptable dun sa MUP. Kayo po, ano nakikita po ninyong acceptable para sa bayan?
Yeah. Well, and I admittedly that we need to reform the pension system of our uniformed personnel. Right now, it's in the General Appropriations Act. No? It's in the GAA. And it's becoming unsustainable because every time you increase the salary of our uniformed personnel, the pension also increase, or the base of the pension increases. Therefore, the pension will also increase. And everything is lodged under the general budget of government. So it's unsustainable that way because almost every year, the salary will increase, and we kept on increasing the number of personnel that we have. So I actually submitted my own proposal yesterday, no? And the proposal that I came up with is only apply it to new uniform personnel coming into the system. So meaning the existing personnel will be status quo because it's very difficult to adjust their take-home pay because we already promised them that they will take home X amount of remuneration. So we will only apply it to the new entrants of uniform personnel so that we will not disrupt the existing uniform personnel, but yet we are slowly fixing the unsustainable pension system that is existing right now by giving the new entrants the formal pension system will be managed by GSIS.
Sir, ilang percent bale yung contribution ng mga new entrants that you're looking at?
We will pattern it after existing government employees. Right now, it depends on the rank, no? But it's about 21%. But that will be shared by government. No? I think government takes up about between 15 to 20%, more or less. No, so in effect, the new entrants will only share maybe between 5 to 7%, more or less.
Okay, pero patas.
So in other words, there are two components.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
One by government, one by the new entrants in the uniform personnel group. And that will cumulatively, that will be probably around 20-21%, more or less.
Pero sir, you're saying pareho na siya dapat ng level ng ibang civil service.
Yes, so pareho na siya, no? With us, like for example, I'm a government employee, it will be more or less the same with any other government employee. Maybe government would want to increase the subsidy that government will give because we also need to entice. No? This pension system is a form of incentive for people to join the military service or the uniformed personnel service, which is, as we know, is hazardous. So as a form of incentive, government absorbs all of that. Maybe in the future, throughout the debates and the discussion, government can actually increase the subsidy to be given to the new entrants.
Okay. Sir, maraming salamat for joining us tonight. Senator Win Gatchalian, again po, good to have you on board.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Ami. Maraming salamat.
And that's it for the Chiefs. I'm Ed Lingao.
We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. I'm Ami Pamintuan.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.